Welcome to the heavenly tea. Water. Well, water makes tea. I was having a chat with a friend of mine, and I was talking to him about the ridiculous amount of disclosure in children's books. For my work, for my job, I have to read a lot of children's books. And I was just reading one, which is all about the film industry, a kind of modern ballet shoes, as you were, the posy fossils of this era. And I thought, wow, how is this book even published? How has it been published? Because the writing was so dull. It was like a diary, but kind of worse. Just no build up, no concentrated good and contrast, just little up, down, up, down, up, down. And the whole book, 327 pages. And I read the whole thing for a sweet student of mine because she really loved it, because it was the theme of the film industry, children being in a film. I wonder why that was published. This is my theory. That book, title's underneath this video, that book was published because what do we start to understand, we adults? Hollywood is corrupt to its disgusting, despicable core. Hollywood is where movies are made. How on earth do you get people to carry on working for acting and want to be in the movie industry? You have to get to the children and make it all glamorous and beautiful. So it was a lovely romantic tale, except terribly written, so badly told, so boringly written, and yet on the market promoted, all these reviews, one-word reviews. Always suspect when you get one-word reviews from many big names. This is the publishing industry. It is owned by certain people, and it is for, just like films and the news, so-called, it is to deliver messages. Now, I was a great reader. You probably were too. In my childhood, so I was born 71, I had books like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe series, that 7-book series from, is it Charles? I always want to say Charles S. Lewis, but it's not Charles, it's something else. I'll remember in a moment. Anyway, C.S. Lewis is how we know him as. Masses of disclosure in those books. I've done talks about this before, in fact, but the most exciting thing about it is the parallel realities, the Earth as Narnia, with its true essence of spirit, that fact that the animals still have consciousness enough that they talk, but how that was superseded, intruded by the White Witch from another darker dimension, transferred over from a parallel reality. If you go read the first book, The Magician's Nephew, you find out how that parallel reality came into that Eden, Narnia. And our world is the version that has resulted as the pollution on the original Earth imprint Eden has found its way through into our world. And that dark influence, the White Witch, found her way from a parallel world which had been put to sleep. Giants put to sleep. Now, have you heard that somewhere before? Apparently in Antarctica, giants put to sleep. Strange that. Oh, in a few TV series, giants put to sleep. Anyway, that's that book series. Now, Charles Lewis, if that's his name, C.S. Lewis, was a friend of Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. Funny they don't use their first names. Why did J.K. Rowling just use J.K. as well? Interesting. Apparently it was for marketing, so she couldn't be identified to be female, but there are other reasons. Anyway, Tolkien and Lewis went to the same university, in the same club. Information was shared. Then there were people like Steiner operating at the same time, and there's someone else I'll remember in a moment. However, a lot of authors at that time were disseminating information. Now let's fast forward a little bit. Anthony Horowitz, if you're parents, you will have heard of him as an author. He has written the entire Alex Rider series, a very large collection of books for children, starting kind of, a lot of boys age 10 were reading those, 11, 12 really. Alex Rider was a 14-year-old spy, and it traces him up through into his young adulthood. And you see the sub-reality, the parallel, darker reality underneath ours. Not a magical one in this case, but this sense of using children to get in and do things. Now, Anthony Horowitz also wrote lots of other books. One of them, The Switch, is standalone. He says in the prologue, based a lot on my early life. You read that book. Very well-to-do family, living in a very nice manor house, thank you very much. Very bored, stupid, spoiled, fat child, only child. Very bright, tad. Wishes, for one thing alone, to have the real, authentic experience of going to a fun fair, because it's greasy and dirty and hands-on and strange and unpredictable and stupid. Complete opposite to his controlled life. He's denied that, and that night he wishes he was someone else. Now, back on the fun fair, there is a magician who seems to monitor all the levels of reality, knows what's going on in the heavens astrologically, and understands if he puts a little power into the system, he can help that poor boy, very wealthy boy, poor boy, swap. And he wakes up in the body of someone else, Bob, and Bob wakes up in Tad's body. During the course of this unfolding of the book, we discover that the wealthy boy, the father's wealth is made on experiments on children. Children picked up from the street, orphan children, run away from home children, neglected children, taken into an underground factory, experimented on till they die. This is a children's book. The prologue says, this is based on my childhood. In the end, the disgusting, despicable, wealthy father and his equally despicable, in a different way, wife get imprisoned, and that operation is dissolved. The boys are left, both of them, parentless, because the other boy that was swapped, his parents were equally disgusting, just in a small criminal way. The criminal way of not enoughness, of scarcity, taking opportunity at every greasy little angle, living in a despicable way of dirt. So you have these two alternative versions of evil presented in the book, and the children as the innocent pawns in this scheme, showing how the evil manipulations shape, change, and form them. This is a children's book. Fast forward a little bit. Another Anthony Horowitz book I'm just reading now, Necropolis. The Old Ones and the Five. The old ones, in this case, are the darker forces. Let's call them satanic forces, coming through portals, coming into our world to take it over and spread fear, zombie-like conformity. And there's lots of amazing parallels. For me, the old ones are the Nephilim. And these five children, again, it's this sense of gatekeepers, they're called in the book, but souls that reincarnate to hold the balance. And they work with different white hat groups to save the world from this fear and hive mind mentality. Sounds a bit like the AI programming and the entire alternative universe satanic agenda of technological control, doesn't it? And these five children being the misfits, the ones who work around the system, who don't accept the system, who have their eyes open to understand what the system actually is, doing their best with other organizations who maybe not are good, but are better than that to save the world. Okay, that's an Anthony Horowitz book, Necropolis. Let's talk about Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time. Used to be a standard textbook in all American schools, primary schools. It's no longer in there. That book is fairly harmless, actually. It has two parents, both who are brilliant, a quantum physicist and, well, she's a neurobiologist studying the depths of the organelles of cells and the exchange of energy in cells. So they're both working on energy, these parents. They have children, and the children go on different adventures through 5 books into different dimensions. And they meet different things. The it in A Wrinkle in Time is IT. Oh, AI, yes. A dark sucking force. Not really a force, just a life-sucking entity wanting to create, oh yes, control and hive mind. The children, of course, escape because they are innocent and pure, and their love, their spiritual connection, and the forces of good that help them in different ways transcend it and enable them to temporarily sort whatever problems they come on. There are 4 other books to that. Many Waters, amazing book. It talks about going back into Noah's day, as in Noah, the flood, Noah, and the time just before the flood. And it describes the Nephilim coming in and liking the women and wanting to insinuate their way through into the humanity and manipulate them entirely to their own agenda. That is the description going on in that book. It describes that early time when the Nephilim came in and took control of the human race. It describes it in detail. And then how the flood happens and what. Madeleine L'Engle, maybe she was just a really good remote viewer. Maybe she also had connections to people. This is the thing. These authors, Tolkien, Lewis, they were in with a little group, Oxford and Cambridge, universities in England, the oldest universities. Durham also very old, but Oxford and Cambridge, a very ancient seat of learning. You're going to get occulted knowledge there, and little groups where it was discussed and shared. And how could it be shared to the world? Oh, children's fiction. Let's talk about someone else who went there, Philip Pullman, Oxford. Lyra, his Dark Materials. Now there's the story of a parallel universe to us where the spirit is not invisible. It's visible in the form of an animal. You may have seen the movie made by Hollywood called The Golden Compass, which took aspects of the book and formed it together, the 3 books, and made one film of it, showing the cruelty, coldness, calculation of those working for the hive mind operations, in this case under the guise of a church, not so dissimilar to what we know, trying to separate through experiments for the good of people, their spirit from their body. Oh, that sounds a bit like whatever was in these things with the number 8 chromosome, where the DNA was switched off by the contents of those injections. I think that's what they're trying to do with the technology in our lives too. And the nanoparticles. Okay. Now, those books, the Philip Pullman books, describe many realities, and you see the influence of one reality on another, and sometimes the need to move through, but also tears in the fabric of reality. We know all about this now from CERN, Philadelphia experiment. Some of those experiments caused rifts. Different entities came in and through. We remember this from Atlantis. The experiments there caused rifts which brought influences in. This reality has always been malleable, breakable, repairable. But these books are just for children. Why is all this information in children's books? Well, we've heard this before, that apparently the information must be shared. Occult information which would lead to us humans having more power and sense of our true selves and our energetic potential, the power of our mind and our hearts, our spirits, that has to be revealed. That's kind of the deal for those Nephilim type dudes to stay here. It's not just the Nephilim, Elohim, all these different controlling entities that have sought to use the human spirit for their own ends. So they have to reveal it somehow. So it's movies, that's for adults mostly. And then children's books, it's fiction. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, nice, yes. Let them have a bit of fantasy in a book and then teach them the real world. This is the real world. And then you can have fantasy in a book. No, actually, the real world is in the book. That's interesting. So many, and I've only mentioned a few here. Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll. That's a lot older. Those realities are in there too. Let's go to someone else. Frances Hodgson Burnett, Little Lord Fauntleroy, Secret Garden, The Little Princess. Now, the truth in A Little Princess is so beautiful. She talks about manifestation, conscious manifestation, how it works. Go read that book. Through the imagination, through belief and faith in the imagined, directed by the heart. It's in the book. 1906 or 1908, that book was written. We're still publishing those now, which is nice. They're just, Cute little children's stories. Let's talk about someone else, Philip Kerr. His Jinn series. 2 children wake up one day on their, I think it's 11th birthday, discover that, oh, darlings, you are half Jinn. Your mother am a Jinn. What's a Jinn? Well, really, I'm a fire-based being. I have a sort of shape-shifting possibility. Some of us can fly. We're kind of magic. We belong to an ancient occulted subculture of the planet. Okay. Who and what a Jinn? Is this just a fantasy? Maybe. Let's have a look at that. Now, in Indonesia, a predominantly Muslim country, Jinn are talked about all the time. They're often called nasu. That's an Indonesian word for it. And it's the elements behind all the things in our world. We have different ones for all of the elements of nature, for all of the emotions. Jinn are of places. You have the spirits of places. So Jinn is an integrated concept. It's all the sub-entities that we can't see with our physical eyes. Now, this book, Kerr, series of books, interestingly, is set in New York. That's where these twins reside. But then you go to London, you go to Egypt, you go to other places around the world where there are reportedly ancient mystical things happening, portals, pyramids, ancient cultures, power structures, control centers, and the children have interactions because it's Kerr's walkthrough. Yeah, these are the power centers. This is what's happened. These guys do exist. You will wake up maybe one day and realize you're half reptilian. Jinn. Oh, did I say something? Yes. The thing we call reptilian DNA tends to be the Jinn. Now, the Jinn we can't see, as I said, with the physical eyes. The idea is that the reptilian DNA came into us because a lot of fourth dimensional reptilians and us were fighting all the time, and those who were protecting the humans were fighting all the time. And the agreement was reached by allowing 30% of their DNA to come into the human body to kind of soothe it as a bridge between the Elohim type seeding and the Pleiadian Lyran seeding of the human and the reptilians who said, this is our place, this is our planet, we were here first. So they made this deal and integrated different DNA into our system. Sonia's chat with me just a few weeks back, go and have a look and see what she talks about the reptilian DNA influence leaving. And we were talking about the limbic part of the brain here, the reptilian brainstem brain, which puts everything on autopilot, the hive mind capacitor. So I've just run through quite a lot of books there because I work with it. I work with ideas with children. I want them to start to just have a moment of thought that possibly reality is not what they can just see and touch and what they go and sit in their classrooms to learn at, that possibly there's something more going on. I can't tell them. Everyone would think I was nuts. I wouldn't have a job for a moment. But I can give them the stories. We can discuss them. I can ask them what they think about it, what they feel about it. I can encourage them to create their own versions of stories, see what comes through them, what's inspired. I can keep the door open, hold the door open for the possibility for them to believe, expand, and experience that there is more than just the 5 senses. There is a lot more available, and the world is made of far more than our limited 5 senses gatekeepering. So adults, if you want disclosure, yeah, you can go into the alternative media and try and pick out lots of different contradictory things, or go and look at a few books. Even the adult books such as Jean Auel, The Clan of the Cave Bear, that's back in Neanderthal days, talking about the humans and the Neanderthals, with their big cranium and the massive memory, and then the humans with the innovation and creativity and some crossbreeding, these 2 different species of early humanity, very early humanity, later version. And you look at Robert Zepper's work on anthropology, and you see that what was in Jean Auel's book is reflected in his work too. She's describing culture through her receptivity, her remote viewing access into the past. Amazing books full of beautiful healing herbs. If you want to learn about healing herbs, read the Jean Auel books. Wow. And there's even been a companion, someone wrote a version of books, herb book where you can look at all of the different healing herbs used in the Auel books. I can't find out that. I had it in my computer, but you could probably Google that. And you can read all the remedies for which these plants are used. And her books, Auel's books, were describing a world before anything we know of technology, how to fend for yourself, how to hunt, how to make and craft, like the epitome of human culture with handmade work. That was what was described in that book. Very so-called primitive, but very highly cultured too. Interesting books. These things, when authors go in and remote view, because that's what you're doing when you allow the imagination to access the field, you get very interesting literature. And some of these people are not only allowing their Akashic record field, the morphogenetic field, the access to knowledge that we have through our spirit to pull through them as they write. Some of them are also having chats with people about occulted subjects which are being put in those books, and that is why they're being published. Philip Pullman's latest book, we have been waiting for years. Sometimes I wonder, I don't think he's alive anymore. If you look at the themes in his books, let me look. Last one, Book of Dust. That's the series that led on from his Dark Materials. Big fat books debating big fat topics of life, of spirit, of control, of freedom. And we have been waiting for the next book for the last 5 years, maybe even 6. And I saw a film where the theme was there was an author, and the author was then superseded by AI. It was a very horrible computer program. They started to get hypnotized by using this computer program to help them write, because their own sense of, anxiety on the quality of their writing was so strong that they allowed the computer to start writing for them. And eventually the computer wouldn't let the author write anything, was even giving shocks through the keyboard and then shocks through the air of the room from the computer as it expanded. It's the AI mechanism we've been taught of the takeover of AI from true human spiritual imagination. And this author was successful, had all the money in the world. His books were published, but he had actually had no input in them at all. The books were published to disseminate a certain idea, to control a hypnotic idea into the world. This is a brilliant book. It's got awards. You must read it. Hundreds of thousands of people read it, take in the ideas. Books are powerful. Publishers are powerful. Reviewers are powerful. It's a play-by-play game of you keep your money if you do this. Oh, I just do this favor for this person and review this book and say one word that's nice, even if I think it's terrible. We'll publish the word that's nice. And because I'm a famous author or personality or critic, people will pay attention now to that review and think, oh, that's a good book, I must read it, without questioning. They read it and it's a piece of junk, or it's indoctrination, conditioning. So the Philip Pullman book, we're waiting, because the book he's supposed to be writing should be telling us the origin of how these control systems came into being, and this separation between the technocrats, hive mind domineering controllers, and the wild, innovative, investigative, loving, emotional humans came about. That's what that book is supposed to be about, with talk about substance manipulation, how it's spread across the planet, I should say, and the intrigues, political and power. That's what was supposed to be in that book, and it hasn't been published yet. I wonder why. So this is just a little fast intro. I'll put all the titles. Please share this. I want us to become aware. Remember, we've been in an education system. Everybody in that system is well-meaning. But it is a conditioning from outside system. And the new way of learning we need is resonance from within, which pulls that which the inner being needs to understand, know, and explore to you. It is a magnetic, almost, attraction. This is the true learning. My spirit has something it wants to find out about. That's why I've decided to come back and be born into this world. I have something I want to explore and discover and uncover and expand. And you will be drawn to the information, the learning, the experience that correspond to that. That's from the inside to the outside. And the world we've lived in, every learning structure has been the opposite, the 180-degree opposite of let's plaster you with an external curriculum of learning, ideas, authoritarian structures, control, everything from outside over you. The coats I talk about that the adults wear. Adults are children with a whole load of coats. So we are starting to realize that. We are taking off our coats and we are becoming from the inside out rather than the outside in. But as we understand that, it's very important to see what we're giving our children, to understand the impact of what we're feeding them. I don't just mean with food, how it's impacted us. And all my training is about this for you adults. So you can start to really take the complete blinkers off, make these choices of clarity, because you are there to protect your children, to prepare the environment for their learning, growth, development, and joy. So everything I'm offering out here, go and look at my website. It's listed down below. All of the courses are out now. Teacher training to change this new paradigm of resonance learning. I call it INSPIRITION at the Speaking House. One-on-one sessions you can have with me. I have books with all this information in it. This is what we have to start working on, holding on to, and being. We can't just talk about what's wrong anymore. We must. We must build what is good and right. Bye-bye. I am Dr. Isabella May, and this was The Heavenly Tea.